Hey everybody, this is Kathy.
And Brian.
And welcome to another episode of the Main Street Moments podcast. A lot has happened since our last podcast, and we were waiting to see all the stuff that was developing before we talked about it. If you remember, we talked about this Reedy Creek thing a while ago before it really became an issue in the news.
Yeah.
And with Governor DeSantis stripping Disney of its special tax status and its special city status or whatever. And so we wanted to see what happened with all that and wait till that was officially decided. So as of now, next year, next summer, Disney will lose its special Reedy Creek status over this parental rights bill that Bob Chapek did not comment on. And I think we were just talking about it before the show. This really goes to Bob Chapek's lack of leadership abilities. And I think he's the kind of guy that doesn't like to get in the mix of things and do any kind of damage control. He just kind of likes to let things lie. And we were reading this article today, but I'll let you speak on this first before we get to the article.
Here's the thing with Walt Disney World in Florida is specifically what we're talking about here. Walt Disney World in Florida has lost their way, okay? Walt Disney World in Florida.
I agree on that.
Everybody knows the story about how Walt Disney himself came up with the idea of Disneyland. Remember, he was at a park with his kids on the bench, and he wanted a place where he could take his kids to.
Right.
Disney World, Disneyland, and the Disneylands around the world, in particular Disney World in Florida, because it literally is its own land, is supposed to be a place where you go and escape the troubles of the world. And the reason I say specifically Walt Disney World has that big piece of land where it's isolated. And I kind of describe it like it's supposed to be like Westworld, where you go into this world of Walt Disney and all the troubles of the world are forgotten, right? Because you're in this new world. And what Disney has done is forgotten what they're in the business of doing. They're in the business of having customers come and enjoy themselves. And they, since they reopened from the pandemic, Disney has just made one mistake after another. First mistake,
I agree on that,
was making Bob Chapek the head of the company. He's
For
awful.
sure.
But this reservation system is a nuisance. You can't
Disney
get on the
Plus,
rides.
Genie Plus.
Yeah, you can't get on the rides. You can't even get in a park half the time because of the reservation system, which is a gimmick they use,
Right.
so that they know how many people they've got to schedule to save money. You've got the Genie Plus, so you got all that. And then all of a sudden they get involved in politics. And anytime you get involved in politics when you're a company, that is a company that is a customer service company, because that's what Disney is. It's a customer service company. It's other things too, but in general, they have customers that come and spend a lot of money to enjoy. When you get political like this, you immediately alienate half of your potential customer base.
Yeah, and the problem is Disney is bringing the outside world into Disney,
Correct.
which is something they used to really avoid. And you could go into Disney World, and it's called the Walt Disney World Resort because it's 4 parks, multiple hotels, restaurants, downtown Disney, or whatever they call it now, Disney
Springs.
Disney Springs used to be downtown Disney.
Used to be Pleasure Island.
It's a whole it literally is its own city. It's kind of like the Vatican if you go in there.
Yeah.
If you go into the Vatican, which I've been, it looks very different than Rome. You can tell a difference. It's just cleaner. There's nuns and priests all over the place, but it does look like a different place, and you feel like you're in a different place. And the same thing is with Walt Disney World. When you go there, the outside world is supposed to be you're not supposed to think about it. You're supposed to be in your own little world in the Disney world, and you escape the real world. And the problem with Disney is, like you said, companies are political. But this article, I'm going to read part of it by this Harvard professor. He said, Disney versus DeSantis, Chapek's "don't say gay" fumble is a warning to CEOs. And it talks about what happened with Disney. And this guy says here that Bob Chapek did not do his homework. He says, we're in a different world today. Chapek was acting like he was back in the 90s. In this world of 2022, you have all kinds of stakeholders who expect you to take a position, especially your employees. The professor continued, adding that workers today have found their voice, particularly in this post post-COVID world. They want to be respected and heard, and they want their CEOs to speak on their behalf. So he's saying with the Don't Say Gay bill or the parental rights bill, it created an uproar and created this huge war with DeSantis because Bob Chapek ignored it at first. So he feels the opposite of us. He feels companies should be political, and that the mistake Bob Chapek made was not being political right away and not addressing this right away.
That's insane.
And what happened is he didn't say anything when this bill passed, the parental rights bill in Florida. And there was a lot of pressure from the media and some of the employees, apparently, for him to say something. And they just feel that he handled the whole thing very poorly.
Well, Bob Chapek should be fired. And let me tell you why, okay? Disney is facing a lot of problems losing Reedy Creek. I was just reading today.
It's a mess.
That there's talk of taking away Disney's no-fly zone status, which is really annoying. Sometimes you'll see helicopters on the outskirts of some of the parks. They have a no-fly zone over there for a lot of aircraft, and if they lose that, think about what a nuisance it'll be at the park with planes and jets flying over. And Disney World, throughout its history here in Florida, has always had a very good relationship with the governors of Florida, of both Democrat and Republican parties, okay? It was a Republican governor of Florida who in the 1960s made the deal with Mr. Walt Disney himself about the land. You guys seen the press conference, the big announcement that Walt Disney made about Florida. He was with the then governor of Florida. If you go back to the opening of Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom in EPCOT Center, I still call it EPCOT Center, but in 1982, both EPCOT Center and the opening of Florida's Magic Kingdom, the then governors of Florida were there on opening day. When Walt Disney reopened.
And Ronald Reagan had his inauguration there.
I'll tell people about that in a second because that's a pretty cool thing people don't know about. When the Walt Disney World parks reopened after the COVID pandemic, Governor DeSantis, who they're at war with now, went to Walt Disney World, did the same thing at Universal, had a press event. Ronald Reagan, in his second inauguration, there was a blizzard in Washington, D.C., and they could not have the outdoor inaugurations that you see every 4 years. Mm-hmm. So they had Ronald Reagan's second inauguration at EPCOT Center in front of the American Pavilion. And you can find it on YouTube. Not a lot of people know about that. It's pretty wild. So they've always had a relationship with politicians that were positive in Florida, although Ronald Reagan was the president, but of both Republican and Democrat parties. And what the Disney company told the leadership in Florida is a Republican state. I know a lot of you may not like that, but it's a Republican state. And the Disney corporate control out in California said, we're going to make it our mission to make sure that every Republican loses their seat in the governor's mansion and in the state legislature. So, of course, they're going to react to that, and they're punishing Disney.
Yeah, that was like a threat.
And I thought that when it came out that they were going to lose the Reedy Creek status before it was signed by the governor of Florida, that Disney's CEO and some board members, I even thought maybe Michael Eisner would come out of retirement because he's still around, and he just sold his mansion in California. It was the largest home purchase ever in the state of California last week. I thought they would have some big wigs from Disney come to Florida and have like a summit meeting with the Florida governor to try to cool things off. And what they've done is they've escalated with Florida.
Yeah,
and this is going to have some really long-term negative consequences because they have created such a war with Florida because of the Reedy Creek. They haven't had to pull permits from outside governments. They get permits from Reedy Creek, their own government. The state of Florida, don't put it past them. They could go into the Disney parks and find that hardly anything meets code.
It's up to code, yeah.
And, this could be I know there's a lot of idiots around the country that are saying, oh, Disney World can just move here or move there. They don't know how big it is or
how much money they put into it.
They think it's the state fair where these rides could be taken down and moved on trucks and trains. It's a city. It's a city. It can't be moved. It could be shut down and abandoned, I guess.
Or they can build another one. They can build another Disney World
state.
in another state, which people are talking about.
So, and the problem is Disney and the Republicans in Florida, so far as I can tell, have not had a single meeting to try to cool things off.
I think there's a lack of leadership with Bob Chapek.
He needs to be fired.
And this guy, that wrote this article, which I put in our Facebook group, Main Street Moments, his whole thing was that his problem was that Chapek didn't address the parental rights bill when it was passed, and he ignored it, and that's what created this whole mess. But I don't think it's that really what happened. I mean, maybe, but I think Chapek let this entire situation get out of control by ignoring it. He seems to be a guy that avoids things. Remember when they had like a big thing with the opening of the Star Wars sections or something, and he didn't show up?
Well,
there was something there because the audience didn't like him. He was afraid he'd get booed or something.
There was an employee event at the Magic Kingdom that he did on tape on a video screen. He didn't show up in person because he was going to get booed.
Avoid things and not like to handle these kinds of things.
Not just getting political, but the nuisance that the parks have become for guests. I saw something today on YouTube that is shocking that I never thought I would see happen. Michael Kay, you guys know Michael Kay. He is almost giving up on Disney. He made a video today that he is going to make he's not going to stop going to Disney. He'll still vlog Disney. But Michael Kay said he is going to make his channel more of a cruise channel and not Disney cruise. He's Celebrity Cruise Lines and others. He's going to make his channel more of a cruise channel than a Disney channel. So that's Michael Kay. If you've lost Michael Kay, you're in trouble, Disney.
It seems to me that, because we did a few shows on this. First, we did a show that Michael Kay was bored with Disney.
Yeah.
Then we did a show that he was in love with Disney again. So I think maybe what happened is he was getting bored with Disney, which I think is a huge part of this. And then he tried to bring the magic back, and maybe it was false. And he started getting all gung-ho, but it didn't stick. And now he's venturing off into other things. And you know what? I totally understand that. If you vlog Disney and only Disney all the time, no matter how much you love it, it will get boring. And I know this was his biggest fear when he moved here, that it would get stale. And I think it has for him, and I think that's normal. And I think it's a smart move for him to venture into cruises, because that seems to
not
be
Disney cruises, other cruises.
Well, all cruises, right? Yeah. And that seems to be his bread and butter. That seems to be his niche that people respond to the most, is the cruising. And if he could become a cruising expert, including Disney, I think that would work well for him.
I think I know what happened to Michael Kay, which I'll tell you in a moment. But there are three Disney vloggers who have changed what they're doing, okay? We just talked about Michael Kay. Mm-hmm. A second one is Jackie from Super Enthused. She's like traveling the country like Adam the Woo now with her boyfriend. She's, and Prince Charming Dev, who's changed his name to PC Dev. And PC Dev and Michael Kay have both changed their channels dramatically. Prince Charming Dev, it seems like every one of his videos is critical of Disney now. And he was talking about gave a bad restaurant review this week. Michael Kay and Prince Charming Dev, both of them were not invited to the press event for the Galactic Star Cruiser. And since that happened, I think that Michael Kay and Prince Charming Dev are really upset at Disney because they weren't part of the press event for the Galactic Star Cruiser. And Prince Charming Dev, I think, is just angry, and he's like in a revenge mode. And I think Michael Kay is like hurt. Like really, like he wanted to be, I've forgotten her name.
Stacy.
Yeah, Stacy. Michael Kay's dream was to be like, not to be Stacy, but to be like Stacy.
To be like the male Stacy. He used to talk about that all the time.
A couple years back.
This was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, before he came to Florida.
When we first started watching.
Before he was a Florida resident. But, and I think he is really just feels betrayed that Disney and
maybe.
And Prince Charming Dev, I think Prince Charming Dev was just frankly pissed off that he didn't get invited to the Galactic. And he's
ranting
against
his tone
Disney.
changed right after that.
Well, yeah, and I get it. I think both of them should have been invited to the Galactic Star Cruiser, especially Michael K.
I agree.
And Michael K. went on a real cruise that week and vlogged on a real cruise ship as opposed to the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a Disney cruise, I don't think, was it? I think it was a Royal Caribbean.
It was Royal Caribbean. So when you've lost, you gotta. There are certain people that you think you could never turn away from Disney, and Michael K. is one of them. And he's.
I think it's a combination.
He's almost done with it.
I think it's getting stale because there really isn't a when all these vloggers really I'll say this, when we started vlogging and when we started this channel, it was 3 or 4 years ago now. 3 years ago, I think, maybe 4. I can't remember. That was to me when Iger was still in charge, and it was like every week was something new happening at the park. It was exciting. And we would rush to watch the latest Disney vlogs like, oh my gosh, what's happening now? It is not like that anymore. Now it's like they get a new cupcake and like 20 vloggers go to talk about it, and it's getting boring.
There's some things that are new.
Not like before. Not like before.
I don't think it's that there's a lack of new things because,
I think so.
You got the Guardians of the Galaxy thing and stuff. But I think that it is such a nuisance to go to the parks.
It is.
Both to get a reservation
yes.
and then the genie that
True.
It just turns you off, and it turns a lot of people off, and people are very angry about it. And I hear people that I know in my personal life that aren't like obsessed with Disney like all of us are, that are like people have always complained about the price, but now they're complaining like they never did before, that Genie Plus and the reservation system has really ticked people off that aren't people that go to Disney all the time, but might go once every 2 to 5 years. And because they don't go very often, they spend a boatload of money. And they're like, it seems like such a hassle. I don't even want to.
It's a hassle for sure. Back in the day, you could just show up you could just literally.
Not that many days ago, you could just show up.
No, exactly. You could just buy a ticket, or if you had an annual pass, like Brian does, you could show up at a park and go to all 4 parks in one day. You didn't have to make a reservation.
It's bad.
You could show up whenever you wanted. Now they're really micromanaging people, and we've talked about this before, and nickel and diming everybody. And I agree, a lot of people are really soured. And then couple that with all this political mess that they've gotten themselves wrapped up in. It's been a bad 6 months for sure.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of shows talking about is the vlogging oversaturated, and it's amazing that every day I have 5 new vloggers show up on my recommended YouTube feed, people I've never heard of before, and
it's fun though. Vlogging's fun, so that's why a lot of people want to do it.
It's fun, but a lot of the vloggers like Prince Charming Dev and Super Enthused and all of that, they're not getting the views they used to get, probably because there's an oversaturation, and that's why they're like Jackie is becoming like an Adam the Woo type traveling America. It's just there's a big change. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, Kathy, before I forget. I know a lot of you have heard that they're tearing down Space Mountain at Tokyo Disney. My biggest fear is that they do that here in Florida. When Tron opens up, which I'm very excited about Tron, when
that looks like a cool ride.
When I was a kid, my favorite land was always Tomorrowland. But the last few years, Tomorrowland has been kind of eh. There's a whole area that you can't even go into. I really don't enjoy the laugh floor. But Space Mountain,
it's kind of lost its way. Tomorrowland, it's not like it used to be.
No, Space Mountain's my favorite ride, and one of the reasons is I rode Space Mountain when it first opened originally, and I was barely tall enough to go on it, but it was very exciting. And even though it's gone through a lot of changes, it still has a lot of nostalgia for me, from my first visit to Walt Disney World.
Yeah, me too.
Then when I rode Space Mountain the first time, it was the rise of the resistance of its day. It was the ride that was new and everyone wanted to go on it, and it was amazing, and it's very nostalgic. And I have feared all along that when Tron was completed, they would demolish and redo Space Mountain, because the track in Space Mountain here in Florida is those 2 coasters inside are the original tracks from 1975. Disneyland, their Space Mountain was built in 77, and they've already taken out that track that's there is not the original track. Ours is the original track, and I'm thinking, well, Tron, are they going to use that as an opportunity? And then I saw they tore down.
I don't know, they might not now with this new
with losing Reedy Creek.
With Reedy Creek,
yeah, they have to get permits.
They might not make any changes.
They have to get permits. But when I saw that they tore down the one at Tokyo Disney for no reason at all, other than they have a new idea for a ride,
I wonder what they're going to do.
Shocking. They're going to have a new version of it.
Yeah, I'm curious what it's going to be. Is it going to be tied to a movie? Is it just going to be a new track? I'm really curious. But I think this whole, and hopefully they won't change the one here because they really have changed a lot of Walt Disney World. It's when you go there, if you used to go back in the 70s and 80s like we did, it still looks the same, but there's a lot of rides that are there that were not there then. There's a lot of rides that are missing, that are gone forever. Obviously, there's still Pirates and Space Mountain.
The Mansion.
The Haunted Mansion is original from the 70s. What else? You have Carousel.
No. There's a lot there that's original.
Not as much as there should be.
But there's not as much as you think.
There was that whole Toontown area.
That's not original.
But that was there for a while when our daughter
90s.
was little in the 90s, and they had Mickey's house and Minnie's house. I thought it was awesome. And now it's all this stupid circus, which I can't stand, with Dumbo. And I know the kids love that ride. And when Emily was 4, that was her favorite ride. I get it.
Well,
but I don't like the whole Pete's Circus area at all.
The reason they have the circus area is because at Disneyland, Walt Disney himself had a circus there for a while and always had a dream of having a circus at the Magic Kingdom in Anaheim. And I guess that's where that idea came from. But
I don't love it.
Yeah, I when I go to the Magic Kingdom, I ride as much of the original stuff as I can. And Space Mountain's a big ride for me. I just love that ride. It takes me back to 75. And
my favorite ride, I think, is Pirates.
And I know
it's always been my favorite.
I know one thing. Braden from Mickey Views has talked about this a lot. The Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster at EPCOT. I've heard Braden talk about this a lot since the first concept came out, before construction began. He doesn't think it belongs in EPCOT. And I agree with him on that.
Yeah, I agree with him. Epcot's really lost its way. It's not at all what it used to be or what it should be.
It has. And the problem, there's a problem with the Disney management right now.
Yeah.
And they don't see, Bob Chapek was very in tuned, I felt, with the
You mean
park.
Bob Iger?
I mean Bob Iger. Bob Chapek is not. Yeah. Bob Iger was very in tuned, I think, with everything. He was a Michael Eisner type. And Bob Chapek, he is, to me, ever since Bob Chapek took over Disney, it's been nothing but problems.
Well, his contract, I think, is over in 10 months. So I really cannot imagine, just because of this whole Reedy Creek debacle, I think a lot of people blame him. And I'm curious to know in the comments, because we do have a lot of cast members that listen, what do you guys think about all of this and about Disney getting political? Do you feel like this guy in this article that Disney has an obligation to comment on these things, or do you think they should stay neutral, which is what Bob Chapek was trying to do, and I understand that, but I think the media made it out more than it needed to be. But I agree with you. I really thought they would have a summit and meet with DeSantis and try to iron out these problems. But instead, it got worked out in the press, and that's never good. And now we have this problem, and it seems to be an all-out war. And I think both sides are losing on this, and the Floridians are losing the most because nobody wants to feel bad about Disney, like in that way. You know what I mean? We all have issues we don't like about it. But lately, it's like it's hard to find. They're, like I've said before, they make it hard to love right now. They're really making it difficult because of the overcharging, the politics, and it's just a lot of bad feelings. But, I want to know how you guys feel that go to the parks. Is it bothering you? The political stuff, how do you feel about all this? And if you're a cast member, do you think Disney should get political, or do you not care? Do you want it to stay out of politics? Does it make your job harder? Do people say things to you at the park? What kind of stuff is happening there? But the Michael K thing, I think it's very interesting, his shift to cruises. Because let me tell you, for Michael K, if you would have told him 3 years ago that he was going to shift away from Disney and do cruising and cover all kinds of cruises, not just Disney, he would have thought you were absolutely nuts. And I think this is a major shift in his channel, and I feel that his channel's kind of stagnated and it's kind of isn't growing like he wants it to grow.
Yeah.
And I know people have had issues with him over the last few years with certain things I'm not going to talk about. And maybe he's looking for a new audience now because his channel really has kind of stalled. And, I think that's what he's trying to, because if you notice the last 3 months or 6 months, he's really tried a lot of different things and nothing seems to be getting his momentum going. And maybe he's thinking, well, I'm going to just pick this niche.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's a good, smart move.
Yeah, I agree. I know. I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah, people like his cruise videos. And I know he gets a really good response from them, but we'll see what happens with that and how it goes. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening to the show. We appreciate all of you. And please leave your comments about what you think about all this, and we'll see you in the parks.